Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. If you clicked on this video, then this means that you already know what HomeExchange is. If you don't, then I really recommend that you go and watch this video here above, which is also linked down below in the description, in which I explain on a more basic level what HomeExchange is, how it works, and so on. It's more than 2 years old, you will see it's quite old. It's one of the first videos I did at the very beginning, but hopefully the information in there is still useful. Today though, what I will be doing is that I will be going through the guarantee/insurance coverage that HomeExchange offers. Why am I doing this video? Well, I think that this is something that comes to most people's minds when first considering signing up with HomeExchange. I can understand. I mean, leaving your personal home to strangers is something quite personal. Maybe it gets a bit easier if you have multiple residences, but still it's good to know how HomeExchange protects you as a host when you decide to leave your home to strangers. And now I have been talking about it from the host perspective, but what about the guest? What happens when you go and travel somewhere else using HomeExchange? In today's video, I will be going through the coverage for the host as well as for the guest when using HomeExchange. So stay tuned and let's begin. First, let's start with a very quick distinction, which is that HomeExchange has HomeExchange, the normal platform, and then they also have something called HomeExchange Collection, which would be basically the same but more luxury homes, so kind of the premium version of HomeExchange. The reason I'm mentioning this is because if you go and read through the whole document of the guarantee, which by the way, the link to it will be down below in the description, you will see that there are several points in which they mention the HomeExchange Collection, as the guarantee is not exactly the same. To be honest, the functioning of it and the basics and so on is pretty much the same for both. The only difference is in the compensation, because in the HomeExchange Collection, since these are more luxurious homes, the compensation is slightly more than the other, but for the purpose of this video and to not overcomplicate it, I will just use the normal HomeExchange, which is also the one that I have been going through. But just know that if you are part of the HomeExchange Collection, it might be that the amounts per day that you get of compensation, which we will go into those in a minute, will be slightly higher. That said, let's begin first with what the guarantee covers for hosts. So if you decide to leave your home to strangers for a certain period of time. Mainly, there are three different things, which are a $500 security deposit, the damage coverage, and the theft protection. Starting first with a $500 for every single exchange before finalizing it, it automatically includes a deposit of $500 from the guest side. This deposit is just an authorization of payment that the guest gives in case there are damages to the property, and don't worry because nothing is charged at the moment of making the exchange or even when you are doing it. It's just simply an authorization, and then if the host at the end of your stay detects that something is wrong, there were damages or whatsoever, first the host needs to get in contact with you as a guest as well as with HomeExchange. Then there is a mediation process, and in the end it's true that you as a host have the right to keep some of this deposit because there were really some damages. Then it's when HomeExchange proceeds to take the money from the guest account. If you are a guest and are worried, which normally everyone in HomeExchange is both a host and a guest, because it doesn't make much sense to be a host in HomeExchange if then you're not going to be a guest, because all you get from guests staying at your home are either points or you do a simultaneous exchange, so you are being a guest somewhere else. Regardless of that, all I can tell you is that from my experience using the account of my mom, which is the one that the whole family uses whenever we are traveling, we have gone to 23 different homes. So we have been guests in 23 different homes and we have never had any major issues. I think that the worst one was just one time that the home was not really clean, but that was basically it. And then on top of that, we have also hosted 16 different guests at our home and we also have never had any issues. The best part of the platform, as I just mentioned now, is that normally everyone who goes to other places as a guest is also a host at the same time or has been a host. This means that everyone knows what it's like to be on the other person's shoes, and this just creates a much more respectful exchange. And in my experience, really, people take really good care of your home because they would like you to do the same if you go to their home. Even if you're not doing a simultaneous exchange and you're just doing it for points, it is the same in my experience. Still though, it is of course good to know that HomeExchange covers you with this $500 deposit in case something goes wrong. Next point is the damage coverage, which includes a $1 million damage protection. Basically, if there are damages to your property which exceed the deposit from the guest side of $500, which we just mentioned now, then the insurance from HomeExchange takes over. Of course, if this applies, first you need to get in contact with the guest, also involve HomeExchange, and then if it's true that you need to be reimbursed, you need to provide all the proof and documents of the incident or the damage. The final point from the host side is the theft protection, which is pretty similar to the previous 2 points, but it is that if you as a host detect that things from your property are missing, then you can get them compensated. Of course, the first thing you should do is to talk to your guest to see if maybe they just move things around in your property and that's why you cannot find them where you usually have them. But if then you really detect that there was a theft, that someone stole something from you, then you should just get in contact with HomeExchange and then provide all the supporting documents and you should get it compensated. This was basically it from the host side, which I think that it's very nice, and actually the guarantee is very similar to others from other platforms, like for instance Airbnb. But what about when you travel as a guest? What does the guarantee cover in those cases? Before we go into that, let me just tell you that if you want to register with HomeExchange, the link to it or the referral code to it will be just down below in the description, and if you use it, you will get 250 guest points when you first sign up. Also, I want to mention that we, or my mom, because that's from my mom's account, are not getting anything because we already referred more than 10 people and apparently that's the maximum for us to get more points, but you will still receive the 250 guest points if you sign up using our link, so I think it's nice, and I mean, you just feel free to use it if you want to. Also, for some more reference, if you don't know exactly how much does 250 guest points get me, well, that should get you about 2 nights in an apartment or a small house. Just for some reference, the home that we usually live or exchange using HomeExchange costs 147 guest points per night, which means that you could almost stay 2 nights in our home, but I must say that it's a pretty big one. So if you just go to one apartment or a small house, probably between 90 to 110, 120 guest points, you should find something. However, going back to the questions from before, what does HomeExchange cover when you are traveling as a guest? Well, it basically covers 3 different things, which I will explain in detail in just a moment, and these are cancellation protection, compliance guarantee, and damage coverage. First, the cancellation protection compensates you with up to $840 per week if the host cancels your reservation and HomeExchange is not able to find a replacement exchange accommodation for you. If a host cancels the booking, the first thing that will happen is that all the points that you had used for the exchange, in case you had used any, will be returned automatically to your account. Additionally, HomeExchange will contact you within 72 hours of the cancellation and help you find a substitute exchange that meets the basic criteria of your search. If no substitute exchange can be found, there are 2 different options depending on what you want to do as a guest. Option number 1 is that you cancel your trip, and then in that case, HomeExchange will reimburse all non-refundable fees which are related to your trip, for instance, the train tickets, plane tickets, and so on, with up to $120 per night. These $120 per night are just per exchange and doesn't take into consideration how many people are traveling. So whether you are 2 or you are 4, you are still getting just these $120 per night as compensation for all the flights or train tickets or whatever you had booked. And I forgot to mention that you only get this $120 per night back if you present the invoices or the proof that you had booked those tickets and you canceled them. Then we have option 2, which is that HomeExchange is not able to find a substitute accommodation, but you still decide to go on your trip because you had already booked your flights, you want to go to that destination whatsoever. In that case, HomeExchange will reimburse you with up to $120 per night for the nights that you were supposed to stay in a HomeExchange, but then you need to look for some other accommodation. The maximum that you can get reimbursed is $1,800 per exchange, which is the equivalent to 15 nights. The following point is the compliance guarantee. If the accommodation does not meet the initial home description, HomeExchange will offer an alternative solution. Of course, it's not as easy as just saying, hey, I don't like this accommodation, please change me somewhere else. No, it needs to be a valid reason. So for instance, if it's just because the toaster is not there at the apartment and in the description it said that there would be a toaster, this is not acceptable because it's just a very minor thing. However, if you just rented an apartment in the Alps in the middle of winter and then suddenly the heating breaks and there's no heating in the apartment, then this is a very valid reason. Of course, the first thing you should do in those cases is to talk to the host, but if there's still no solution, then HomeExchange will do 2 different things. The first thing is that they will try to find a replacement exchange for you, and if this is not a possibility, if they don't find one, then you will get the $120 per night that I previously mentioned. The last point is the damage coverage, which is the same as in the host guarantee points, in which the property damages are covered up to $1 million US. There is no detailed explanation from the guest side, but I guess that it means that if you accidentally damage something that is worth more than the $500 that you left as deposit, you don't have to worry, and just the guarantee from HomeExchange will then take over. Besides all the coverages from the guarantee that I just mentioned, it is also important to acknowledge and to keep in mind that there is a verification process for every profile in the platform, which consists of 3 different steps. One is the address and identity verifications, which includes sending a scan or a picture of your personal ID, as well as showing proof of residence no older than 6 months. The second is a phone verification, and the third an email verification. Finally, there is also a personalized assistant team, the so-called happiness team, which is available in case of emergencies 24/7 in 7 different languages. However, they don't have telephone support, so the only way to reach them is via email or Facebook Messenger. If it is a more general question, you can also use the live chat within HomeExchange, and then you will ask the HomeExchange ambassadors, but I guess that this is more just for general questions, and if you have an emergency, you have a dedicated email address for that. Personally, we have never used the SOS email address, which is the emergency one I was just mentioning, but with the normal one, we have received very good response times from HomeExchange. With it, this is the end of the summary of the HomeExchange Guarantee. Personally, I think that it's pretty good, and it certainly gives me more peace of mind knowing that I have all of these different points I just mentioned from the guarantee whenever I'm doing exchanges through the platform, both traveling as well as hosting. And you, what do you think? If you're already a user of HomeExchange, have you ever had to use the HomeExchange Guarantee? Please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, then don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed, and as always, see you next time.